Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Lew, I want to be clear about the administration's position on the debt limit. As I understand it, the position is that the President will only accept a so-called clean debt limit hike with no other accompanying policy or fiscal considerations attached to it. I've asked you repeatedly how much of a debt limit increase you would like and for how long, and you have responded that it's up to Congress. Now, I believe that the administration's position is unfortunate because it is clear that we have a debt problem and that the fundamental driver of our debt is unreasonable, unsustainable spending in our entitlement programs. I believe we can and should use this as an opportunity to address these problems, and I have personally, as I mentioned, offered 5 modest bipartisan proposals on entitlement reform to the President earlier this year. You've received copies. Unfortunately, I've heard no responses to that, and I sincerely did that. Nevertheless, the administration is entitled to its opinions and positions, so I just want to be clear concerning the debt limit. As long as there's nothing attached to a debt limit increase, the administration will say nothing more about it, including its preferred outcomes in terms of how much of an increase and for how long. Is my understanding correct? Or do you wish to give me your preferences about how big of a debt limit increase you'd like to have and for how long you would like it, so that at least we can begin discussions and negotiations on this particular issue?
Senator, you and I have discussed this a number of times, and we've corresponded a number of times. I wrote to you just last week, a few days ago, stating what our view is. Our view is that this economy would benefit from more certainty and less brinksmanship. So the longer the period of time is, the better for the economy. It's really Congress's decision how often it wants to vote on the debt limit. I believe that more certainty is better. I think the Senate leader and the chairman have put forward a proposal.
Mr. Secretary, all I'm asking is how much do you want, how long? I mean, those are 2 simple questions. How much do you want us to raise and how long?
So, Senator, the question of how long is one I think I'm answering as clearly as I can. The longest that Congress is prepared to extend it for is the best. I think the President tried to be clear in his statements in recent days that if Congress passes something shorter, he was open to, he's not looking for there to be a crisis here, but Congress will be right back dealing with it, so the better solution is to go longer. So we've tried to be very clear, and everyone knows the numbers that are associated with different periods of time.
Well, it's not clear to me. Now, Secretary Lew, the recent long-term outlook from the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office makes a number of things abundantly clear. First, between 2009 and 2012, the federal government recorded the largest deficit since 1946, causing federal debt to soar as a share of our economy to an amount higher than at any point in U.S. history except a brief period during World War II. Gross debt now stands at 107% of our GDP. Second, our debt path is unsustainable, threatening to bring us to this fiscal crisis. Third, the root of our spending problem is the government's major health care programs. That includes not just Obamacare, but Medicaid and Medicare as well. Fourth, and others. Fourth, trust funds in Social Security and our health entitlement programs face exhaustion. Yet when it comes to negotiating solutions to our entitlement spending problems, all I hear from the administration is that negotiations can only proceed if first the President is guaranteed yet another tax hike, or if the only spending restraint we've enacted thus far is turned off. And when it comes to so much as even discussing solutions to our entitlement spending program or problem, all I hear is that negotiations can only proceed if first we pass a clean continuing resolution and a clean debt limit increase. And what does it take beyond a guarantee to the President and congressional Democrats that they first get yet another tax hike, or that the sequester be undone to get the administration to the table to talk about entitlement reforms such as the ones I've proposed, in which to date have been met with total silence from the administration? And furthermore, is it reasonable to say that there can be no negotiations unless there is another tax hike, when we know this very day that disabled American workers face a benefit cut of 20% or more under current law when the Disability Trust Fund is exhausted in 2016 or earlier?
Senator, I think the record is clear that the president has negotiated, has wanted to negotiate, and remains anxious to negotiate on a bipartisan basis to have a fair and balanced approach to dealing with our fiscal problems.
Not clear to me.
He has been on the verge of agreements twice until, frankly, it was not acceptable to Republicans in Congress. He was prepared to do very hard things. He was ready to have an agreement twice, in 2011 at the end of last year. He put in his budget very tough policies that many of the Democrats on this committee find very challenging, because he wanted to make clear he was looking for a balanced approach to entitlement reform and tax reform to settle our fiscal matters in a sensible way for the medium and long term. So I think the president's record on being willing to negotiate is clear. I would just make one comment on, very briefly, on the trajectory of our deficit. I would just note, when the president took office in January 2009, we were in the middle of the worst recession since the Great Depression. We were in the middle of 2 wars, and we had a deficit that was 9% of our economy. We've cut that in half. We're making progress. We have more to do, but I don't think it's fair to say that we are in the same place we were. We've made tremendous progress.
Senator White.